welcome to Steve McDonald's Arts and Crafts, and today what I'm going to be doing is an experiment using these embossing folders. And what I'm going to do is see if I can make some thin silicone moulds to use as either inserts or to casting on different things with resin. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to split these embossing folders in half. Now that's not going to mean that I can't use these embossing folders again, because all I need to do is make another little hinge with a little bit of tape and then I can use them again. Now I've got those split, what I need to do is make sure I've got them up the right way, and that's so the bits that are embossing are on the top, which they are. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to see. But before I do that, I need to protect these edges, because if not, the silicone is just going to run out of it. Now I'm going to do both sides, the indent and the lifted bit, to see what that comes out like. And what I'm going to use is some aluminium tape to border these off with. Now I use this quite a lot. It's a little bit rigid. It's used for leaks and things on your pipe work, so it works quite well. It is very sticky. Be careful when you're doing it. Probably best not to do it with gloves on. But there we go. So I only want that to be about halfway up there. I'm going to lift that up like that, then cut that off at the edge. Now you could wrap this round, but to be honest, I find with this stuff, it's easier to do this. And I'll show you why in a second. I can now lift that up, and there's me little inserty bit. Do you see what I mean? Where it's going to stop the resin overflowing. But I need that on all the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these off. I'll show you what they look like when they're completely ready. Well, now all my little dishes are formed out of the aluminium, and I've reinforced the corners just with a little bit of tape, and that's normal sellotape. The really important thing I think is going to be to give these a good spray with a silicone, easy for you to say, with a silicone release spray, because that will help the silicone not stick to these embossing things. Now they're all prepared and they've been sprayed, what I'm going to do is mix up my silicone. I'm going to be using the resin colour silicone. It's a brilliant silicone. It's only available in the UK, but I will recommend an equally as good one for the USA. This is mixed up as a 100:5 ratio. For every 100 grams of the silicone I use, I need 5 grams of the hardener. And I do try and be as precise as possible with this. Make sure that when you're stirring this, you go down all the sides, scraping off all the sides and the bottom as well, because if not, you may get areas that aren't mixed and then they'll be soft when you come to use it. Now my silicone's all mixed up, I'm going to pour a little bit into each of the moulds to start with. And then I'm going to allow that to settle and possibly spread it out. Now, if you find you haven't mixed enough silicone up, don't worry, because you can always mix a little bit more up, because really one of the only things that sticks to silicone is silicone. And it is a pain sometimes. So you can mix some more up and just put it on the top. It isn't going to hurt it. I want to take just a little knife like this and make sure that I'm pushing that silicone into all those little indents. I don't want any bits that are kind of missed out or have bubbles in. Hopefully this should cast really well, because we have put the mould release in it. It should stop it sticking to the embossing plate. I'm going to go around and do all these like this. Pushing this in, trying not to pierce the aluminium foil as well, because you don't want to be doing that, because if not you'll end up with leaks, and no one wants leaks. Well, I don't mind leaks if it's a leek and potato soup, then I like leeks. Now make sure you wipe off your silicone off your stick as well, because you want to use that again another time. And then top up your little moulds. And it does look like I may have to mix up a little bit more silicone. Don't think I've quite mixed up enough, but I don't want these to be too thick either, because I may want to put them into the bottom of coaster moulds and things like that. It's a balancing act between how thick they are and how thick you want them. These have all been curing up really now for about 6 hours, and they are completely cured, so I'm interested to see how they come out. Now they should come off these embossing folders really simply because of the amount of spray that I put on them, and this tape should also come off really easily. Now I'm going to take the tape off first, because that way it's not going to hinder anything that I'm going to be doing to take the silicone off here. Oh, I'm quite excited about these. And they should come off if you ease the edge off like that and then pull gently like that. Oh, and they have, look at that. I'm not sure how well that's being picked up by the camera, but that has absolutely made a beautiful impression. We've got no air bubbles in there at all because we did that smoothing over first, and there's no damage to this folder as well. I can easily join this back up together and use it again as an embossing folder. Well, they've all come out really well. I'm really pleased with them. And you've got the ones here with the prominent and then the indented for both of them. And it's going to be interesting to see how these cast. So let's pour some resin on these and see what they look like. Now, I am concerned about this one because I obviously didn't have this as level as it could be, and it does slope away from the top. From this bit here, it slopes away that way. So what I'm going to do is I will just pop a couple of these sticks underneath it to kind of level it up while it's curing. I'm going to be using the J. Diction Quick Cure resin for this because I know that that'll cure up nice and quick. It's a nice and thick resin. It's got a great viscosity, and also it has a lot of UV protection in it. And it cures up in about 4 hours as well.
Have this feeling, haven't felt for so long. Took a hold of me and won't let go. I've been sleeping, caught me off my guard. Cause you're in my space and now I'm so. Pull me towards you and I cannot fight it. My head's underwater, I'm trying to disguise.
Well, these are ready now to take off these moulds. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they've come out. And if they've come out really well, then what I may do is, once I've cast these, is cut these into coaster shapes. But at the minute, this is just, they come off the moulds lovely. Oh, look, that has come out lovely. So that's left indents in there because this was raised. And, oh yeah, I think that's come out really pretty too. And that's raised. Again, this one's raised. And that one's got indents. That's indented. So on these ones where it's indented, it's really just a simple process to highlight these indents. So if you want to highlight these in gold, all I would do is I would take some acrylic paint, a soft brush on there, making sure you get the paint in all the indents. Fairly easy to do. And you can always go over this more than once if you want to. All right, and then I brush going this way and then up, because that makes sure that you've got a nice even coating in there. And then all I take is a baby wipe. Now you can take a baby wipe, you can take a wet cloth, but don't have it too wet. And you want it to be like kind of that folded over like that. And then all you do is gently remove the surface paint, and that should remove quite easily. I've shown this before in other videos, but it works really well. And then I take a dry cloth and then go over that as well. And then I'll leave that to dry for probably about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll go over it again. But can you see how beautiful that has come out already? Well, they're really easy to cut and to turn into a coaster mould. I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I want to show you these now they're dry. I think the highlighting of them comes out really well. It's another way of using your embossing folders, another way of making unique coasters. I prefer the ones where you've got the silicone mould that's a bit raised because it's a little bit easier to put the detail in it than it is on here. But what you could do is just get an ink pad and brush over that very lightly, and that should then attach the ink to the raised pieces. How I went about cutting that was, turned this over, I put my coaster mould on there, and there is a trick to this that gives you a really nice, neat cut. Then I marked it as close to the rim of, or the edge of the outside of that coaster as possible. And then using a sharp knife rather than scissors, I go in and I go into the point of the inside of the mark because that's the closest to the size of the coaster. And then I just cut away. Now, try not to stretch the mould as you're cutting it, so that's why I'm holding it down with my fingers. And if you go around with a knife, you get a much smoother finish, I think, than with scissors, because you're getting a continuous kind of cut. And if you've got a nice, clear, good quality circle like that, then you can push it into the mould where you want it. So now we've got 2 inserts for coaster mould. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you found it useful, please boot that like button. It really does help my videos to get out there. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think and which way you like the best. Do you like them with the fill-in or do you like them without the fill-in? I would love to know. Links for everything that I've used today are in the description below, along with the link to buy me a coffee. Take care. Bye.